Look around you. Who do you believe truly controls the world? The ones you see, or the ones you never notice? The faces on television screens, the CEOs on glossy covers, the politicians smiling and shaking hands. They are visible because they have to be. But real power moves quietly. It works without noise. It never steps into the spotlight. It doesn't need applause. Machiavelli taught that the most dangerous man in the room is the one who isn't present. He is the absence you can't interpret, the shadow you can't hit. He stays hidden because every appearance carries risk. In this world, power survives by remaining unseen. The kings behind kings, the financiers who own nations, the silent designers of systems, they show themselves less and control more. You won't see them on stages. You won't hear them in interviews. You won't recognize their names. And that is exactly the point. Why do they stay invisible? Because exposure invites attack. Because mystery amplifies fear. Because control works best when no one knows who pulls the strings. You think you're looking at the top of the pyramid. You're not. You're staring at a mask while the real face remains hidden. Let's tear that mask away. Power is not loud. Power is not public. Power is absence. Machiavelli understood this. The more a ruler shows himself, the more weakness he reveals. The masses want a face to praise, and they want a face to blame. Give them neither. Stay unseen, and you become untouchable. Absence creates distortion. When you are not visible, your enemies cannot measure you. They can't judge your strength or your limits. Rumors spread. Whispers grow larger. People begin inventing their own stories about your reach, your influence, your ruthlessness. And here is the truth. Those imagined stories are often more powerful than anything you could ever say or do. When you appear too often, you shrink. You become familiar, predictable, easy to dissect. The public sees your humanity, your mistakes, your contradictions. But when you appear rarely, you become something else entirely. A symbol, a myth, a threat that exists more in the mind than in reality. Absence weakens your enemies. They don't know when you'll move or if you're even watching. They exhaust themselves planning attacks that may never happen or defending against moves you never intend to make. With every silent moment, their anxiety grows. Their paranoia eats at them. And when they finally break under that pressure, you act with precision, without warning. Invisibility sharpens impact. When you do appear, the world listens. Every word, every action carries maximum weight because it is rare. You create scarcity, and scarcity creates value. People desire what they cannot reach. When you hold back, you teach the world to crave your presence, and you decide when they are allowed to have it. Remember this. Absence is not retreat. It is preparation. It is the blade being sharpened before the strike. The powerful never waste themselves on constant exposure. They conserve their energy. They wait, and they strike only when it truly matters. That is how absence becomes a weapon. The moment you step into the light, you become a target. Visibility is tempting. It feeds the ego. But Machiavellian minds understand it is a poisoned gift. The world watches, studies, dissects. Every word you speak reveals strategy. Every appearance exposes position. The public eye becomes a weapon aimed at those who crave attention. Look at history. Kings who mingled too often with their people were overthrown quickly. Leaders who exposed themselves to too much praise discovered that cheers can turn into screams. Why? Because the masses are never loyal. They are entertained. And when the entertainment fades, they demand a new show. Control depends on distance. Appear too often, and you give others the power to analyze, challenge, and criticize, you lose leverage. They learn what you desire. They discover what you fear. And once they know, they can manipulate you. The smartest rulers, the true puppet masters, never stand before microphones or bathe in the camera's light. They place others there, figureheads, proxy shields. Let them take the applause. Let them take the heat. The real power remains behind the scenes, silent, protected, invisible. This is how they maintain their grip. The CEO who smiles on stage is replaceable. The silent owner behind the curtain is not. The general who gives press briefings can be fired. The strategist writing the orders in the back room cannot. The more visible you are, the more disposable you become. Remember, power is not about being known. It is about being obeyed. You don't need the crowd's love. You don't even need their recognition. What matters is their submission, and nothing creates submission faster than invisibility. No one can strike. No one can trap you. No one can predict your moves. True power does not speak. It makes others speak for it. Machiavellian strategy teaches that a master never wastes time explaining, defending, or arguing in public. The master shapes the conversation from behind the curtain, pulling the threads so that the world believes exactly what the master wants, without ever knowing where it came from. A microphone is unnecessary to control the narrative. In fact, using one often exposes weakness. Public statements, press conferences, tweets. These are tools for those who need attention. The truly ruthless know this. Attention is liability. Once seen, you are vulnerable. Once you speak, you lock yourself in. Once you engage, you surrender control. Instead, the master plants stories, controls messengers, manipulates information flow. He ensures others spread the message while he remains absent, untouchable, and untraceable. Consider the ancient kings who ruled vast empires, yet rarely appeared before their people. Why? Because their image was built through myth, ritual, and whispers. Their power was never carried by their own voice. It was carried through the machinery of influence they controlled. Priests, advisors, poets, spies. These were the channels. The king remained elevated, distant, a symbol far greater than any mortal man. In today's world, the same rules hold. The billionaire funds the media company, but never appears on camera. The strategist engineers the election, but never stands at the podium. The corporate raider reshapes entire industries, but is never quoted in the press. Their fingerprints are everywhere, yet no one sees their hand. This invisibility is essential because it creates plausible deniability. If something fails, if a message backfires, if public anger rises, the master remains insulated. It is the visible players, the talking heads, the public figures, who take the fall. The shadow behind them stays intact, recalculating, repositioning, waiting for the next move. Manipulating the narrative from the shadows also multiplies fear. People do not fear what they can debate. They fear what they cannot confront. When you remain unseen, your power seems limitless. The public cannot pin you down. The opposition cannot strike. Even your closest allies do not know where your influence ends. That uncertainty is a weapon. More importantly, shaping the story without appearing gives total flexibility. Public figures are tied to their words and bound by commitments made in front of crowds. But the hidden master can pivot at any moment. He can change course, abandon strategies, shift alliances, because he never made public promises. He acts freely while others defend yesterday's headlines. Machiavelli understood that a prince must command perception, but never stand exposed. Out in front, you become just another player, another voice. Behind the scenes, every voice becomes your tool, every player your pawn. You do not need to speak. You need to decide what is spoken. This is why the most dangerous figures are rarely the most famous. Fame is a trap. It ties you to the crowd's expectations. But the architect behind the fame, the one designing moves, controlling the message, reshaping the field, that is the figure with real, lasting power. Controlling the narrative is not about being loud. It is about being invisible and ensuring the loudest voices echo your design unknowingly. Machiavelli knew one brutal truth. The hand that wields the knife should never be the hand the world sees. No true master rules alone. That is weakness. The master builds layers, proxies, puppets, shields. These figures absorb the spotlight, the praise, and most importantly, the blame. Understand this. Power flows downward, but exposure flows upward. The clever ruler pushes public responsibility onto lieutenants, deputies, advisors, and figureheads, while pulling true control into private, hidden hands. This creates an armored system. If the outer layer is attacked, the core remains untouched. Look at how this operates in politics. A president's advisor leaks a controversial memo. The advisor resigns. The media celebrates, and the public feels satisfied. But the strategist behind the advisor, the one who planned the leak, stays invisible and unharmed. In corporate warfare, a scandal erupts, and a middle manager is fired. Yet the real decision-maker, the majority shareholder, the financier, the silent partner, quietly replaces the manager and continues the game. These proxies are not only shields, they are instruments. A Machiavellian leader intentionally sets them against one another, creating rivalry, competition, and dependence. Each proxy becomes desperate for the master's approval, fighting for fragments of attention and influence. This ensures those below never unite. They remain divided, distracted, and ultimately controlled. More importantly, proxies allow experimentation. The master can test strategies, push policies, and take bold risks without ever risking reputation or capital. If a move succeeds, the master takes quiet credit. If it fails, the proxy is sacrificed, and the master remains untouched, free to shift to the next plan. This is how power survives for decades, while public faces rise and fall like disposable masks. But there is a darker edge. Puppets are not just defensive tools. They are offensive weapons. You can place a puppet inside a rival's camp to feed you information. You can use a puppet to spread false narratives, create confusion, or sabotage opposition. When you control the strings, you command the battlefield without ever stepping onto it. Machiavelli warned princes never to bind themselves too closely to a single figure. Loyalty is fragile. Circumstances change. That is why the master builds a network of proxies, so no single loss threatens the whole system. If one puppet fails, another stands ready. If one figurehead burns, another steps forward. The power behind the curtain stays constant, regardless of which mask stands at the front. Look closely at the systems of control in the world. Governments, corporations, even criminal empires. The one who appears the most is rarely the one who rules the most. True power hides in layers. True rulers remain silent while their puppets perform. This is the cold logic of Machiavellian strategy. To survive, responsibility must be divided, exposure distributed, and the strings must never be traced back to your hand. You control the game not by standing in the arena, but by sitting above it, pulling the levers that decide who wins and who loses, while you remain unseen. True power is not held. It is designed. It is not worn like a crown or displayed for applause. It is built into the structure itself. The Machiavellian elite do not lead from the front. They lead from the edge of perception, where control is absolute and accountability does not exist. The visible throne is a trap. It promises glory but demands exposure. The moment you step into the spotlight, you give up your mystery. You become readable, understandable. Attacks can be aimed, reputations dismantled, expectations enforced. But the true master has already declined the invitation to be seen. He has embraced a deeper form of leadership, one that hides within systems, masks itself behind institutions, and governs through proxies. This is not a retreat from power. It is an evolution of it. The visible leader is burdened by presence. He must speak, clarify, reassure, perform. Every word becomes evidence, every silence suspicion. He is bound by what he says, where he stands, and who he appears to be. But the architect behind him, the ghost in the strategy room, the silent financier, the unnamed advisor, holds freedom beyond measure. He has no constituency to appease, no image to maintain, no explanation to offer. That is where his power becomes absolute. The Machiavellian operator understands this law. Influence without identity is the most enduring form of control. The moment no one knows who to blame, fight, or target, victory is already achieved. Invisibility is not hiding. It is dispersing your presence so completely into the environment that you cannot be isolated. It is the transformation of power from person to condition. The master moves the world through levers no one else sees. He embeds intent in laws written by others. He funds ideas, not debates. He backs individuals who carry his agenda without ever knowing it. He does not argue. He creates the platforms where arguments unfold. While the world debates symptoms, he redesigns the system. Control no longer requires commands. It requires environment. Shape the environment, and you shape the decisions within it. People move as you wish, not because they are forced, but because they believe they chose it. That is the highest form of manipulation. Freedom choreographed. Throughout history, the wisest figures have mastered strategic absence. Consider the Roman patricians who ruled the Senate from behind closed doors, never raising their voice, but always casting the decisive vote. Consider the merchant princes of Renaissance Florence, who funded popes and wars while maintaining the image of mere businessmen, or the intelligence operatives of modern states, whose files rewrite reality without a single televised speech. The world celebrates faces, names, brands, but these are often disposable masks. The real force lies in the one who designs the masks, chooses who wears them, and knows when to discard them. This absence is not weakness, it is immunity. When a public figure errs, they apologize. When a frontman collapses, they are replaced. But when you are invisible, you are insulated from consequence. If a plan fails, it is not your name on the memo. If a policy backfires, it is not your voice on the record. And while the world demands apologies from puppets, the puppeteer is already drafting the next scene. Invisibility also creates strategic terror. People fear what they cannot locate. When influence has no address, it turns into mythology. Rumors rush in to fill the gaps. Whispers expand your legend. Enemies swing at shadows. And the less you speak, the heavier your silence becomes. People project brilliance, cunning, omniscience, and whether it's true no longer matters. Perception, once unchained, becomes reality. He can abandon alliances without being labeled a traitor. He can shift ideologies without facing charges of hypocrisy. He is not fixed in the public eye, so he is not bound by it. That freedom makes him dangerous, unpredictable, untouchable. This is not merely a strategy, It is a mindset, a complete rejection of fame as a goal and a full embrace of influence as architecture. The master builds institutions, networks, narratives, and then steps back. He allows others to become the face. He lets them absorb attention, praise, and hatred. And when the moment arrives, he pivots again, just beyond reach, always one move ahead. Because in the end, the most powerful figure in any story is rarely the one standing in the spotlight. It is the one you cannot quite name, cannot quite locate, yet somehow everything bends around him. If this glimpse into power behind the curtain stirred something deeper in you, something ruthless, silent, and strategic, then don't just watch from the shadows. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and step closer to the knowledge most will never see. Because in a world drowning in noise, the ones who listen are the ones who rule.